Thank you.
So the bodies of 13 service members killed in Afghanistan have returned to the U.S. President Biden and the First Lady attended the dignified transfer of the remains at Dover Air Force Base yesterday and met privately with the families of the fallen. One by one, caskets of the soldiers were loaded out of a military aircraft and into transfer cars. They were killed when a suicide bomber and gunmen attacked Kabul's airport last week. Meanwhile, the race to evacuate Americans from Afghanistan is now entering its final hours. U.S. forces are set to complete their final withdrawal by tomorrow's deadline. So, for more on all of this, let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Weijia, we're learning at least 5 rockets were fired at the airport in Kabul early this morning. That's according to one U.S. official. What is the White House saying about this?
Well, the White House press secretary overnight actually released a statement to say that the president has been briefed on that strike down of the rockets, and that the process there at the airport, their operation, is not interrupted and ongoing because, as you mentioned, we are down to the wire now to finish up this evacuation effort. And so the White House says they will continue to do their work and that they are prioritizing whatever is necessary to protect our forces on the ground. And our colleague David Martin reports that this was from the CRAM system, which is an automated system that detects incoming attacks and uses machine gun actually to fend it off. And so the assumption at this point is that those rockets were being fired toward the airport by ISIS-K, but so far there's no confirmation of that. But certainly the tension there continues to escalate, which is exactly why the administration is so eager to wrap this up and get people to safety as soon as they can. Now, this is following another airstrike that the U.S. launched over the weekend to stop a suicide bomber or car bombs from reaching the airport. So they are in full defense mode, in addition to their efforts trying to get people out of the area.
So, as we know, tomorrow is the deadline. Give us a sense of just how many people the U.S. is able to get out. And also, there are going to be people who, for whatever reason, are not going to be able to make it to the airport, or maybe choosing to stay right now, but a month from now may not be wanting to live under the Taliban and are looking for a way out. What's going to happen with those people?
I think that's a great question, Anna Marie, because right now, the administration says they are in touch with every single American who wants to leave and is trying to leave. And the State Department says that's about 250 people. We also know there are about 280 people who are undecided about leaving. But I think the administration has been very clear, sending out alerts, frankly, for months now to say that, if you want to evacuate, you need to take the proper steps to get that process in action. So it's unclear what will happen to them, but they will have to rely on aircraft that is not military aircraft, right? Because, they are leaving. So there are a lot of unknowns about whether in a month, as you mentioned, they'll be able to do that, even though the Taliban has said they want to continue operating the airport there and, allowing safe passage for Americans. But we also know that's not even the case right now because, as you also mentioned, there are Americans who are still trying desperately to get to the airport in our reporting, and they're unable to do that, even though officials are in constant communication with them. We have seen instances where they are on their way and they've had to turn around because the situation, the environment is too perilous. But the message from the White House is that they are in contact with everybody and trying to work out the best plan for them to come home if they want to.
I also worry about just how the Taliban will treat those with dual citizenship, who are American citizens but also Afghan citizens, and whether or not they will treat them as, Americans who want to leave. All we can do is sort of watch and hope. Before I let you go, listen, I want to ask you about some stuff that's happening here because, of course, Ida is still churning its way sort of across Louisiana and Mississippi. We know that the president has approved a major disaster declaration. So what does that mean in terms of federal aid? What's coming to these states that are in need?
Well, even before the storm hit, there was federal assistance. FEMA was sending millions of meals and liters of water and tarps to the state, and they also deployed thousands of people who are there now, trying to make sure people who are impacted, the victims, are able to weather the fallout of the storm and able to have basic functions and survive, really, after they've likely been displaced from their homes and are dealing with homes that may not be livable right now. And so that is an ongoing effort from FEMA, and we see that every time there is a disaster like this. We also know that there are several other agencies assisting. For example, the Army Corps of Engineers is there to assist with power supply and generators, meals and water as well, because this is such a massive effort to try to help people who are affected by this storm. And it really is so many people throughout the entire state. Of course, the Coast Guard was pre-positioned as well for deep water search and rescue efforts. They'll continue to be there as well. And President Biden has said that the state will get federal support in the region for as long as it takes. So you're right, Anne-Marie, he is committed. He will continue to get briefings today, as he has been in the days leading up to the storm, just to monitor what else people need as they begin to rebuild and try to, move on to the next phase of this emergency.